Hey, this is Mrs. Fano again. This is the third part of my introduction for vaccine. The first one, we talk about the body defense system. There are three different levels. So there's a non-specific one, that's the innate immunity, and then also the body fluid immunity. That one will produce antibodies. The B cells will produce antibodies. And then third one is the cell-mediated immune response. That's the T cells. The T killer cells is very powerful. And then for my second video, I was talking about the antibodies function. Antibody has three different functions. The first one is to neutralizing the invaders, the virus. And then the second is to help the macrophage to gobble up the enemy. And then the third one may just to make holes on the bacteria, kill them just like that. So there are different ways for the antibody to work. And then for the macrophage, if the macrophage gobble up the enemy because of the antibody, and then they can act because or not, doesn't matter. So the macrophage actually will produce some signal to tell the T cells to produce maybe the memory T cell or the killer cell. So the macrophage is very important because of that. So the antigen will be on the surface. And next, I'm going to talk about different vaccines. So if we understand the other part, now we're going to try to understand different vaccines. So inactivated vaccine is probably people most familiar with. That we thought most of the vaccines are inactivated vaccine, but actually that's not true. Flu vaccine is most commonly used, so that one actually is inactivated vaccine. I used live vaccine before, but it was not comfortable. So hepatitis A, polio, rabies are inactivated vaccine. So inactivated means the virus has to be isolated and then somehow make it destroy it. Destroy it so it does not infect your cells anymore. So it means they're dead. Virus doesn't have a life anyway, but just they don't have the functionality to infect your cell to reproduce it anymore. Most likely the genetic information get destroyed. A lot of times, at least for the flu vaccine, is RNA genetic material is RNA is very easy to get destroyed. But because if you learned what is the humoral immunity or cell-mediated immunity, you know this is because it does not go into cells. So the antigen, those protein will not come to the surface of cell membrane, then it's very hard to induce the T cell response, the cell-mediated immune response. So you still can produce B cell, which produce antibody, but it's not going to have the T cell response that easily unless the macrophage gobble it up and then decided to write a report and then tells your T cell to respond to it. It may have larger number or more repeated type of like booster shots multiple times to train the T cell to respond to it. So it's kind of a difficult way of to make your immune system work. So this is, it says it need a lot of repetition. So flu vaccine is because it's mutation, we have to get it almost every year, but also because it's the inactivated vaccine, so you don't really develop very long-term immunity because of that. The next one is called the live attenuated attenuated vaccines. It's a weakened. It's a weakened vaccine. So what is weakened is still alive. How do you do that? Usually, it's put in a different host cells. For example, chicken embryo, human. Whatever those virus, you can probably grow them in the chicken embryo, some in the bugs, some in other whatever monkey cells. So there are all kinds of different cells. I don't remember what cells they grow, but they're so they kind of losing the ability to causing harmful disease in human. But they still keep the antigen, which means your immune system still can recognize it. So um, that's though quite a lot of them, because this one does produce humoral immune response when it's floating around. So your B cell will recognize it. Also, because it does go into your cell to kind of reproduce, but not a lot. So it will surface on your cell membrane, so it will produce cell-mediated immune response, which is the T cells. So it's a strong immune response, and then your body will remember it for a very, very long time. A lot of times, maybe for life. So that's important. But one of my friend, she's a virologist. For coronavirus, this is not possible. So because the coronavirus is huge and can change rapidly, this may actually cause more harm. So what she said, it may not be weakened enough, or maybe it can actually become more infectious, or it can actually turn into more deadly. So it's not predictable because of the coronavirus is huge. It's a very large one. And then for inactivated vaccine, China has it, but US don't develop that because it's the I think scientists in the US don't believe it's going to help for long-term immunity. The next type of vaccine, the third one is virus vector. I use virus as a vector. So vector means it's a carrier, or it's like a transportation. It's not the coronavirus anymore. I use a different type of virus. The mostly commonly used is adenovirus. Some other vaccine may use RSV. But currently in the clinical trials is the adenovirus. So what is adenovirus? Adenovirus actually is very common. It's the virus caused the cold. We were thinking, oh, when we got a cold, we think a cold and flu are the same thing. No, they're not the same thing. They're two very different viruses. So flu virus actually RNA virus, and the adenovirus is a DNA virus. That's totally different. Just like a dog and a cockroach. That's very different. So almost as different as those. So this is very different. So adenovirus, they all call virus, but you can say they're all animal, but they're very different. So adenovirus, it has DNA, they carries the DNA, and then they may use as a vehicle to carry the DNA into your cell. So the cell will recognize it and gobble it up, to fuse from the cell membrane, and actually will go to the nucleus and inject the DNA into the nucleus, and the nucleus will actually produce mRNA and then protein. So that's and then that one, the protein will come out to the surface and also trigger the cell immune response, because it does produce inside the cell. So it'll come to your cell surface. So that will trigger the cell-mediated immune response for the T cells. Also, it will either just get secreted outside of the cell, or the cell may not, the cell is a lifespan as well. So when it dies, macrophage will gobble it up, and then that will also surface somewhere. So maybe just released, and then also cause the B cell immune response as well, the body fluid response. So that's cause to produce antibody. So it has both. So it has both. So it's better than the inactivated, and also because it does not cause disease. It's only part of a virus, so it does not replicate itself easily, so it's not really causing disease. So supposedly this is safer, but so far there's no FDA approved vaccine. It may have some proof, but just never being broadly used. Like Ebola vaccine was proved, but there are not many people. It wasn't really spread anywhere, so nobody really actually use it. So we have no proof of it. And then so far, there's in clinical trial, the third clinical trial, there's AstraZeneca that use a chimpanzee's adenovirus vector for the COVID-19. The advantage is because it's a cold virus, so our body may have already adenovirus kind of antibody, but if you use this as a vector, then somehow your body may destroy it before it can actually produce the protein you want. So chimpanzee, because it's different, so your body may not recognize it. So use that as a vehicle. It may help your to for the virus, the vector actually help to deliver the DNA into the cell, into the nucleus, and also produce, in the end, produce the protein to mediate the immune response. There's another Johnson & Johnson also use that. So I will talk about that later. And then there's other type of vaccine. There's just use protein to use to mediate the immune response. Those most likely are just the humoral immune response instead of cell mediated, because they don't go into your cell, so they require multiple shots, booster shots to fight against the disease. And then this is against the toxic protein. So there's an antibody we need, especially so the tetanus is one that can be bad for you. So this one we need many shots throughout our life, even every 10 years, because it's protein. It doesn't go inside your cells, so it does not create T cell memory, only B cell. So we have to get multiple shots. So neutralization antibody